Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to be continuing with Rav Kook's commentary on the Adon Olam Tefillah. And as we're coming towards the end of the Tefillah, Rav Kook is going to begin coalescing all of the various aspects of the Tefillah together, all of the ideas that he's described so poetically, beautifully, and powerfully through the vessels of the osios of the prayer. And we're going to see Rav Kook summarizing and unifying the two disparate streams of thought that he uncovered, which is really b'derech klal, the avodah of Rav Kook. Rav Kook identifies two zramim, one on the yamin, one on the small, one of the yichud ilah, one of the yichud tata, one of soviv kalamin, one of mamala kalamin. And while it appears to be a disparate kind of disjointed unity, ultimately Rav Kook draws it together and unifies the two of them in a way that is not the end of the conversation about the possibility of the division between the two, but nevertheless, Rav Kook sews it together, as he said. The avodah of Yechudim is to take these two disparate elements and unify them and graft them onto each other together to reveal something greater than the sum total of its parts. In the first half, we had Rav Kook giving us the fundamentals, the yesodos of what it means to have a proper havana of what I can't understand, as well as what it means to have a proper havana of what I can understand. That which can't be understood, that could only be grasped by way of negation, and the negation of even the possibility of negation is the infinite in its essence, kavyachol, chveidu va'atzmo kavyachol. Beyond that, we speak of the Or Ein Sof, the beginning of revelation, and the triparate breakdown of history and expression of Haya, Hoiva, and Yihya, that which was, that which is, and that which will be after things revert back to the way they were, and with all of the degradations and the descent of the potency of limitation that existed within the unlimited as it emerges into actual, or at least apparent, limitation, and the experience that the individual has as a ma'amin in the face of that place of limitation. We also saw that while we have to hold the transcendence of godliness as an absolute on the one side, we also have to grab hold of the absolute particulars and the particularities of hashgacha, where the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is removed from all manners of grasp, in spite of the fact that he's ever present in every possible space, nevertheless, it does not detract one iota from the particular and specific singular governance that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with each and every person, ad kedei kach that it's v'hu keili v'chai goeli. It's my God and it's the life of my redemption, meaning to say my perception of God is my pathway towards the grasping of the infinite itself, and it applies to every aspect in my life and every moment in my life, the heights of the heights as well as the descents down into the gradations and the particularities and constrictions of this worldly experience, based tzara, in all of the difficult places. And Rav Kook stresses that we have to understand that while we find ourselves in a perpetual degradation of levels, removing ourselves from the lofty heights of the Haya before creation, and finding ourselves stuck in the particulars of Hoive, prior to the ascent back upwards into Yehiyah, where all particularization and brokenness is revealed to be part of a greater unity. But Rav Kook describes the hidden power of faith and emuna and bitachon that reveals the hidden secret of faith that exists, irrespective of our choice to have it or not, in the sense that, in spite of the fact that we find ourselves in the degraded space of descent away from unity, nevertheless, there's a hidden silent faith and trust that things are going to ascend upwards. And from whence does that strength come? Says Rav Kook, this is the deepest proof of Emunah. And then Rav Kook continues to describe the nature of the miraculous power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to shatter and destroy any possibility of limitation, like a nace, like a flag that coalesces all energy into itself to reveal its central part. And then we had Rav Kook once again reiterate to us the fact that in spite of the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is removed, nevertheless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is found in every aspect of my experience, in every aspect of my life. And what we're going to see here now, and then Rav Kook said that the key to this, the key to uncovering the secret of hashgacha in the space of the infinitude of godly unity, is the secret of b'chol karenu elav, that we have to cry out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'yoim ekra, that is the prerequisite towards drawing down the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the kriya mima'amakim is the segula, is the segula, it is the mechanism, and it's not the cause that leads to an effect, as if it's some functional Newtonian physics sense of cause and effect, but rather there is a spooky action at a distance that takes place by way of a quantum, that by calling out, I awaken the mechanism of Kriya Mima Amakim, as Rav Kook says, that through the Hishtalshalis and the Shalshelis that's rooted all the way above in the Choifesh HaElyon, in the ascendant form of freedom of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude, that Kriya is the prerequisite, it is the key that opens up the gate. Biyado afkid ruchi be'is ishan va'ira. And now what we're going to see is that Rav Kook is going to be masbir how it's possible, how these two elements of God's transcendence and the non-changing nature of everything, as well as all of the various changes and the descent of levels down to this lowly place that we find ourselves in this particular moment of the Dir B'Tachtonim, how it's possible that those two can be unified. Biyado afkid ruchi be'is ishan va'ira. L'choil ha'avdalim ha'oipim v'kol ha'merchakim ha'mavdilim. When it comes to all of the separations and all of their classification, all of the particularizations, all of the distances that separate one thing from another. So again, Rav Kook is describing the past, present, future triadic structure of how things take place after the descent away from the infinite itself, so to speak. Yesh erech v'yachis rak klape hayitzurim ve'ercham. These limitations, these changes, these discrepancies, these difficulties, these pockets, these symptoms that we find ourselves in only have any value or any relationship to creation itself and the value of creation, meaning from the perspective of there being something created. Aval klape yoitzer hakol, but from the perspective of the Creator Himself, mitzido, from the perspective of unity, hakol be'echad, everything is unified. And we said, as Rav Kook said, everything is unified. Hakol yachol v'klal yachad. He is capable of all of them, but at the same point, all of them are unified together. Meaning to say, and Rav Kook points this out, that by negating the particularization from the infinite, we don't lose out on any of the power or the value that particulars offer. So meaning to say, the general principle, the unity without particulars, is a static unity, for example. The particulars are the dynamic aspects and the vehicles through which unity reveals itself in an even deeper way. So one would think that if I'm sholel, if I negate the possibility of particularization from the general, then the general klal will lose the value or the engine that comes about from the particulars. But in Rav Kook's Torah, and in the Torah of all of the tzaddikim, there's no losing out. Lama nigara. We don't lose out on the power of the particular within the space of the klal. It's just that the particular, the prat, is nichlal b'seicha klal to the extent that it is goyrim. It causes a perpetual renewal of the intensity of the klal. So here Rav Kook is saying that in spite of the fact that none of these separations, gradations, past, present, and future, have any actual relationship to the generalized whole of unity, nevertheless, hakol yachol, the past, present, future, all of those differentiated expressions of particularization, which are rooted in deficiency, are still there in the space of unity. Hakoil yachol, each and every one of those particulars can be expressed, but they don't exist in their own particularization, but rather v'klalim yachad. They're all contained within a one fell swoop of unity. And so Zakr of Kook, Hanefesh ruach ha'adam be'erech legufoi shehem noisim kol kach rechoikim ze mizeh asher rak b'pliyos olam him kshurim ze bazeh. So Rav Kook is saying over here, he's saying, so the distinction between the limited aspect of creation that is susceptible to change and the unlimited aspect of creation, of godliness, that is not susceptible to change, can be compared to the relationship between the nefesh, the general categorical name for all five parts of the individual soul, which is the nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida, the ruach ha'adam, the pulsation of breath within the adam, and it could be Rav Kook is specifically taking the nefesh and the ruach, because the nefesh and the ruach correspond to malchus and zer anpin, as opposed to the neshama, the chaya, and the chida, which represent bina, chacham, and keser, and those are the pnimim, leumas, the makifim. Those are the integrated parts of human experience, as opposed to the surrounding unconscious light. So it could be here that the nefesh and the ruach ha'adam are the spiritual sense of ourselves that we have access to. Be'erech legufo, in relationship to the guf, there's an absolute distance between the two of them, just as there's an absolute distance seemingly between that which is created in an immanent sense and that which is the creator in a transcendent sense. Yet, nevertheless, we see the two of them are combined and operate in unison. So too, the nefesh and the ruach, which be'erech legufo, the soul, in relationship to its body, shem noisim kol kach rechoikim zamizeh, they are so far and distant from one another. Asher rak bepliyos olam him kshurim zeh bezeh. The only way that they are actually connected is through the wonderment of the world, Plias Olam. And over here, it is a clear, I believe, nod to the fact that the Ramah brings down in Bracha of Asher Yatzar that Mafli Lasos, that the secret of the Pella Elyon, the secret of the wondrous impossibility of the paradoxical upholding of the finite and the infinite, the limit and the unlimited, where neither loses out on any of its expression, but they simultaneously dance together in an upholding of their opposites while revealing something unified. That is only by way of the Pella Elyon, the Os Aleph, which is the light of Keser, which is Gematria 111, the Aleph, the Yud, and the Kaf, which represent the singularities in the ones, the singularity in the tens, and the singularities in the hundreds. This is the Alufa Shel Olam that's Miskala. This is the Or of Keser. It's only by way of wonderment, something that is impossible to understand, that these two opposites can be combined. Yesoid kishurim hu loy mitzad ercham b'muhusam. In truth, there is no essential relationship between the two of these in their essence, because they're so vastly distant from one another. Whether we're talking in the body or the guf, or whether we're talking in the transcendent element of a Kadosh Baruch Hu prior to change, and the immanent aspect of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that exists within change itself. Obviously, and again, with all of the prerequisite knowledge that this has nothing to do mitzido yisbarach. All of these distinctions are only from our perspective. But in truth, the connection between these two opposites are not rooted in and of themselves. Why? Ki ha'erech ha'mavdil ben ruach v'chomer hayatzarech laharchikem u'lepazrim zemizeh. Because in truth, in this world, the separation between the body and the soul, between spirituality and physicality, between limitless and limited, are so separate from one another that they should be far apart and separated. Aval chiburim ve'ichudim ba mikoyach ha'pela ha'elyon, but rather their connectivity and their unity comes about by way of the ascendant power of the Pella Ha'elyon, of the Or of Keser, that is miyached troi hafachim b'vasachas, that unifies two oppositional postulates in one. Sha'akoil me'uchad ba'achduso. From that perspective of hakoil miyachad, everything is unified in spite of the fact that they're opposite. Al ken ka'asher biyadei afkid ruchi be'es ishan, and therefore, as a human being, I have the ability to place myself into sleep, to surrender myself, to abandon my spirituality, my spiritual sense, that which is infinitely removed from my actual body. I give it over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only capacity is to recognize that it's all rooted. The only shaykhs I have to a ruach in this body is the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechaber each and every rega, mafli la'asos, hama'achid hakol ba'achduso, that everything is unified in His unity. Ve'ein hevdel ve'hefresh mitzidoi ve'leirichuk erech bein ruach l'chomer ve'a'ira. And then I come to realize that ruach and chomer in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whether it's my spirituality, whether it is my body, whether it is the transcendent element of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whether it is the immanent level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kavyachol, all of them are nichlal, ba'achdus koleles. They all operate in unison, and at that point, ve'a'ira, and at that point, I awaken myself, I illuminate my mind, and I come to realize what it means to be a Ben Adam in this world. And Be'ezras Hashem, the next year is going to be the last one in the series, where we finally discuss the culmination and the secret of bitachon that Rav Kook is trying to be masbir to us. Be'ezras Hashem.